Good evening, good evening. Hello. Is it working? What the hoots? I don't know if you guys can hear me. Good evening. Hold on. Let me see if that helps. Okay, I see the little icon moving now. Cool beans. Good evening, good evening. Hello. Sorry I am very, very, very late. Very, very late for our impromptu date. Because I decided to do this at the last minute. Shout out to my sis F and M who gave me the idea. Because last month was Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, and I completely, even though we did a live, we did a few, I think we did a few different lives to bring attention to mental, not even I think, I know we did a few different lives to bring attention to mental health awareness. And I forget which month was Mental Health Awareness Month, but we did a few different lives and we discussed different mental health disorders and whatnot. But last month was Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, and I completely let that fall by the wayside. So that's on me, 'cause I didn't even know that, which is sad. And I wonder how many people didn't know that last month was Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. Hey, G Mama Body, good evening. How are you doing? Well, I hope. And then my sis F&M also let me know that this month, which is July, and the month is about up, she's so awesome. Keep awesome people around you. Word is bond. Oh, dang, I didn't mean to do that, but that's okay. She said this month is also excuse me, Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. So, which focuses on the mental health of people of color. Okay, so that as well. To which she is also doing a live tonight discussing men's mental health, and she's also going to be doing a live later on this month discussing women's mental health. So I love that. How are you doing, G Mama? How was work? If you had to work today. Well, first of all, did you have to work today? And if you did, how was that? But yes, when we were talking earlier, she definitely gave me the idea, and I definitely I ran with it too quickly because I would have just put it off because she's also going live tonight. But when we get done here, I want us to move over to hers because she's going to really break it down, break it down. I'm good. No work on the weekends. That's a blessing. Cool beans. Well, shoot. I hope you just kicked it then. 'Cause I hope you were just able to just kick it and relax. Hold on. But yeah, I said we can do an open panel for anybody that wants to come up. And the topic is men's mental health awareness. Okay. So if you want to come up and you don't have an issue with keeping it on the topic, I'm down for you to come up, because like I touched on earlier, we all have men in our life, even if it's not that many. We all have men in our life. And that doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. We all have men in our life that we care for and that care for us. And to keep it a bean, men's mental health is not paid attention to or focused on or cared to as much as that of women's mental health, in my opinion. Really, as opposed to that of the mental health of women, children, anybody. That's not really highlighted. Men's mental health is not really highlighted as much as it should be. And shoot, I can keep it a bean and say I've been hyper focused as of late on calling out and checking the chins of a lot of these disgusting men who exist out here, you know? I have been completely hyper focused on that for my own reasoning. And even if or with those reasonings being valid, I done let something as important as Men's Mental Health Awareness Month go by the wayside when these are the things I discuss on top of other things, you know? And even though, shout out to Iceberg, because he'll say, you know, we should be caring about these things every day, whether it's Mental Health Awareness Month, Women's Health Awareness Month, any of these holidays, he'll say, we should be caring about these things all the time. Fuck a month, fuck a day, but I still let that go by the wayside instead of being able to chew gum and walk at the same time and have the ability to call out and highlight certain behaviors that a lot of these men, shell out both on the internet and off of the internet. But I should have been able to do that and highlight a whole month that is dedicated to Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. So when she brought it to my attention, it definitely resonated. I said, yeah, I got time tonight. We can do that for a little bit if anybody is feeling froggy. He said so true. Yeah, G Mama Body, you know, and shoot, I'll keep it a bean. I'm quick to call a man or a woman weak if I feel like you weak. But at the same time, depending on what that man or that woman got going on up top, that very well may not be the case. And a lot of times, we, me, D, whoever, we don't really think or keep in mind that others may not be fully well, you know, when we are engaging with them. And that's just keeping it a being. And men are not as what is the word? I don't want to say empowered. Oh, encouraged. Men are not really encouraged as often, especially men of color are not really encouraged to really dig deep to see if there's something going on. They're not really given that space and that room to even be able to quote unquote dig deep to see what they got going on fully, you know, let alone go see somebody about it, let alone, follow whatever regimen they are put on in order to aid in whatever they may have going on, whether that's some medicine, whether that's consistent counseling, therapy, whether that's once a week, twice a week, some may need it every day, once a month. Shoot, you may need one that's just on call, just in case you're having an episode or you're just having a really shitty day. So I don't have a problem keeping it a being about that in regards to men. It's not really talked about. And I myself have let it fall by the wayside while hyper focusing on the negative type of men who are out here. But for some of them, there's a reason why they're like that. You know, there is a reason why they may be like that or how they came to be that way. as well as women, anybody, any human being. But tonight, I just want to talk about the men and not have it be on some negative stuff or me having smoke for no men. G Mama, if you want to come up, you can. Anybody can come up. It doesn't have to just be men. But the topic is men's mental health awareness, you know, what to look for, what we can do to help, how to be a little more understanding, you know, what ways should we encourage the men in our life who may need that extra encouraging. And a lot of times, excuse me, a lot of times I'm doing laundry and about to cook. I dig it. I appreciate you being here. And a lot of times, even though the saying rings so true that a closed mouth don't get fed, most men, whether they just don't feel comfortable with it, whether they feel like they don't got time for that, whether they feel like, there's a lot of men, and I don't want to just say men of color, but I know a good amount of men of color who have this thought process that there's no reason or no point in going to pay or going to talk to no therapist, no counselor about your issues. Because at the end of the day, they can't really do shit about it. Excuse my language. This is just word verbatim. And that's a bad stigma that is put on, like I said, not only mental health issues, mental health awareness as a whole, but as well as, you know, someone actually feeling comfortable enough. And that's whether you decide you want to tell others or not, but feeling comfortable enough to say, yeah, I need to go see what my options are in regards to therapy, counseling. Shoot, if you go to a good church, but that's a whole other conversation I might want to have. How much stuff is put on to pastors? How much of other people's issues, problems, emotions are put onto pastors? And that's a lot, especially if you're a good pastor, and you're a genuine one, and you give a damn. That is a lot to be put on one man or one woman, depending on how big your church is, how many people come to you. But that just is what it is, especially if you go to a good church. Your pastor, your deacon, your deaconess are likely to be a therapist or a counselor of the sort for you, and a free one at that, depending on how much of their time they make available to the church members. But I think it's a fair assessment to say that when it comes to men versus women, they are less likely to go and seek help. They are less encouraged to go and seek help, and they are more ridiculed when they do decide they want to go and seek help, primarily men of color, because that is looked at as a form of weakness, like you're a B word, you know. And then you may have older men in your life or women that if you as a man come to them and say, I'm dealing with this, I got this going on, this is weighing heavy on me, whoopsie do, instead of them just supporting you, they want to circle back and remind you about their plight and what they went through and how it wasn't no therapy back then and all this other shit that is completely counterproductive, you know? So that can get tricky too when you do have older men as a man or older women as a man who you seek counsel from, whether they be family members or not, and you respect them. So that means you respect what they say to you and the advice that they give you. And I don't know if anybody ever experienced this when you go to an older person what your problems are to talk to them, what you do. They completely flip the script on you, whether that's knowingly or unknowingly, and basically swipe away what you're talking about and then, go down memory lane and remind you of what they had to go through. That's like a kid complaining to somebody about having to wait in the cold for that long for their bus that was running late. And that person says, bus running late? Shoot, there wasn't no buses. We walked 40 miles in the cold. It's like, okay, I did that. I'm sorry you had to go through that. But like, come on, dog. I ain't talking about that right now. But there's people who give it up that way. There's people who give it up that way. What's up, P? I dropped the link. Is it hittable? So I don't know if any of you guys ever experienced that, where you went to one of your elders with something, whether that's a relationship issue, a parenting issue, an issue with, other family members, an issue with your job, bills, whatever the case may be, that can weigh down heavy on any human being, especially one who cares. Because people who don't care about shit normally don't go through anything. They don't go through anything. It doesn't weigh heavy on them. It doesn't keep them up at night. None of that because they don't care. They'd be the ones who care the most, that feel it the most. And if we're going to keep it a being, if you're a man and you have a family and you're responsible for them, and any man knows and will tell you that's regardless if the woman is working or not. She can be working, she might have a higher paying career or job than you, but at the end of the day, when the dust settles, you are the man, right? The buck stops with you. So that weighs heavy, especially when you have children, especially the more children you have, you know what I mean? And then, shoot, even if you don't have any children, it may just be you and your spouse, you know, in that house, bars. But at that same time, life be life and bills be billing, especially if you like to do things, you know. Things can happen out of nowhere. Oh, pipe burst. Oh, this. Oh, that. You have an animal. Oh, the animal, God forbid, has cancer. The animal needs to go to the vet 18 million times. Anything can happen. And most times when there's issues with money, everything crumbles. Everything crumbles. You know, everything crumbles. It can be a man who's used to his woman working, helping him with the bills. You know, she may lose her job. She may fall sick. They may decide to expand their family, but with that also comes with her being out of work for a bit. And even if she's getting paid, those who have had children or know people who have kids know how that process works sometimes. Sometimes that money don't always come right on time. And it's definitely not what you have been used to making every week or every 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Anything can happen, son. Anything can happen, and that can weigh down on any adult, let alone somebody who is responsible for not only themselves, but other people. So then what happens if they don't feel comfortable or don't even let it be an afterthought? That's why I might be wrong and that they need to go and see some help about it, talk to somebody about it. Now we get into the drinking heavy. And it's not casual drinking where, you work all week, you might come home, have a beer or two, unwind, whoopty doo. On the weekend, you might get it popping. No, it's a every day, every night you getting it popping. There's some men who can't even go on their lunch break without popping open a brew. I've had coworkers, and when you drink alcohol, that seeps through your skin. It's not like when you smoke, you can, drop some Visine in your eyes or whatever. You can spray, whoop-de-doo. When you drinking, that's different. Especially, I don't know if it's like certain type of liquor or if it's certain type of beers, but that stuff will seep through certain people's skin. And you smell it off of them. You know what I mean? I've had people that I have worked with at previous jobs where it's like, dude, you bugging. I had to tell him like, yo, you bugging, son. It was an Indian older man. I had to tell him like, yo, you bugging, son. You need to go and handle that. He's like, oh, you smell it? Yeah, I'm not just saying get from my house, honey. You better go handle that. And there's an underlining reason, excuse me. It has to be. I never picked his brain to try to find out, but it has to be. I'm assuming it to be so. Besides from the fact that you are alcoholic, but how did you become an alcoholic? And alcoholism in itself is a disease, you know what I mean? And a lot of times we, myself included, will hyper focus on somebody being an alcoholic. I've done that. Shout out to Lil, because he pissed me off. We're just gonna keep it a bean, you know. A lot of times we will hyper focus on somebody being an alcoholic, whether it's somebody who pissed us off on some bull crap, somebody that disrespected us, or if it's just regular Joe Schmo sitting outside of the liquor store or the Wawa or whatever, panhandling. We hyper focus on that. Oh, look at him, or he's this, he's that. But and that's regardless if we should care or not. A lot of times we don't even think, why is this the case? Why, how did you get here? How did they get there? Because sometimes that added extra context will kind of make you a little more not, I don't know if I want to say tolerable to them with certain things or behaviors, definitely a little more understanding, which can definitely sway how you react to somebody who may have a drinking issue, you know what I mean? Who may have a drug issue, a man who may seem like he's surly all the time, you know what I mean? And it could just be an uncle that you always avoid because he always on some other stuff, you know what I mean? But I bet you, if you ever just sat down with him, with his surly ass, and just really picked his brain, and not pick his brain just to ask questions, but also to really hear and listen to what it is that he's going to respond with, whether that's your father, your uncle, you know, shit, one of your homeboys. If you really sit them down and try to get to the nitty-gritty of it, I'm pretty sure you'll walk away from that with a little more clear understanding as to the why and the how when it comes to them and their behaviors and whatnot. I don't know if that's making any sense to y'all, but yeah. And I dropped the link, and I don't know if it's hittable. Let me see. Let me see. Cherry picking tonight. I'm not cherry picking. That's why I didn't put semi. open panel. Anybody that's feeling froggy and you want to hop on that link and discuss men's mental health and keep the main thing, I'm with it. And like I said, my sis F&M also let me know that it is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month because, in my opinion, and I may be wrong, I believe that Black men, men of color, there's more of a stigma. You said pause. There's more of a stigma um, on and around mental health in general when it comes to Black men or men of color. That's my opinion. I could be wrong, but that's my opinion nonetheless. So hold on. And I like this thumbnail. Now, because I don't know how to crop stuff out properly, I wasn't able to get the full shebang of what I found. But the full shebang, it says, men get depression. I was able to get most of it to be my thumbnail. Men get depression. Men get anxiety. Men have emotions. Men have mental illnesses. Men experience I'll just say it, they experience suicidal thoughts, you know what I mean? Which is also known as, if I'm not mistaken, suicidal ideations. So even if you haven't acted on that, it's the fact that you even are having these thoughts. And a lot of times, those thoughts will eventually lead to attempts, whether they be successful attempts or not. The fact that the thought is even there, especially if it's repeated thoughts, is enough, It says men need support. And then lastly, it says it's okay to talk about it. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. And once again, shout out to F&M because I wasn't even thinking about this until we had a conversation earlier. Let me look up Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. That's a mouthful. Mm-mm-mm. Okay, so it says National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month is observed every July to highlight the mental health challenges faced by Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities, reduce stigma, and improve access to culturally responsive care. I like that. And even though these are the things that we should, like I said, shout out to Iceberg, because he's the only person I heard refer to, like, speak on it this way when it's brought to his attention about these things. Like, we should be caring about this shit every day. He's so blunt with his. When there's set months to bring awareness to important things, there's no real legit excuse, especially if you are somebody who doesn't mind discussing these things, to let it go by the wayside, if that makes sense. Hold on. What are you doing, P? Hey, Shelly Shells. Hey, sis. The topic is mental health awareness. I'm happy you're here. Would you like to hit the link? Are you feeling froggy tonight? Thanks everyone for joining. Welcome to everyone. Please tap the like button, loves. Yeah, why not? Why not if you're here? While I have you, why not? What the hoots? Okay. I dig it like a shovel. Well, I appreciate you still being here. Shout out to multitasking. Okay, that's a great topic. Girl, I give all the credit to F&M. And when I get done here, I'm going to be pivoting. Shout out to OSD. I'm going to be pivoting right on over her way, you know? Hold on. Because she's doing a live to bring awareness to mental health, to men's mental health, as well as, like I said, it being Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. And then later on in the month, she's going to also do a live that focuses on women's mental health, which I think is dope. And I was just basically just discussing how men's mental health of any race, but primarily people, men of color, it's not really highlighted, and it's not highlighted. They're not encouraged to go and seek help. Most men are not really given or allotted that time and that space to themselves to be able to really even try to clear their mind, to try to dig deep, to really think about anything other than the quote unquote task at hand, especially if they have a spouse, if they have children, you know, and they are a family man, meaning they give a darn about their family, as well as, let me not forget either, excuse me, as well as the many men who I know, men like my boy Dragon, who does not have children, who does not have a spouse, but he is most definitely a family man, you know? Anything his family needs, anything they want, anything they need done, he is the guy. And that weighs heavy on a person at times. That is a lot, when you are relied upon in that way by multiple people. And because they are your folks, it's nothing. You know what I mean? It's nothing. But that can take a hold on you. So let me not forget that. Not only men who have spouses that they are responsible for, children they are responsible for, households they are responsible for, just men in general who people know, and they have people in their life who know they are reliable. Their word is their bond. You know what I mean? That is a lot. Same way it's a lot for a man in general. Shout out to Blaze, who just works a whole lot. And he don't got no kids or a spouse. Not yet. But just works a lot. You know what I mean? Just works a lot. Because he also helps with his family as well as taking care of what he got to take care of. That's a lot on a man. The same way it's a lot on a woman. But tonight, we keeping it on the men. And I don't feel like there's nothing wrong with talking about it. Hold on. I really don't. And even though I'm not a man, I don't have a problem with my platform being the platform where that is discussed. I wouldn't care if a few men hit the link and had this discussion, and I was on mute a good majority of the time. I wouldn't feel like nobody was biting nothing if they decided they wanted to on their platform get their folks together, especially if you have a mass following and host and have this discussion, you know? Either way, I feel like it is a good discussion to be had, you know? I really do. And I would love to see it. And never mind what I would love to see. Hold on. If you're a man or a woman on here and you have a platform and you genuinely care for your following, even though yes, YouTube what you do, you know what I mean? But you know, you rock with them. They rock with you, especially if it's a long-term thing. Why not have this conversation? And obviously, it would be the other people's decision to really touch on whatever they want to touch on or go as deep as they would like to go with it. The understanding that yes, this is YouTube, but even if you wanted to just keep it broad, you know what I mean? Why not? I'd rather hear a panel of men discussing, you know, all that comes with being the man of the house, being the father, all this stuff. I wouldn't look at it like they are bitching. I'd rather see that than a panel of men, you know, having like red table talk discussions about other people and their business and whoop-de doo and all that other stuff. I feel like that could be a constructive conversation to have, even if you still do what I just said. Why not? Especially if you don't mind being on a panel with other men, listening to gossip and this and that. And then let's take it off of YouTube or social media. There's nothing wrong with getting your boys together to play some cards or when y'all are playing the game or when y'all are playing basketball. And while you're doing this activity, y'all just chop it up, but in a productive way. You know what I mean? Because obviously, I know men have conversation amongst each other, but I don't know like how deep they actually dig with people that they actually rock with, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? If they are actually keeping it a bean when they're discussing things, when they're talking about how their girl always be bitching, blah, 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 but they don't say how they be getting pissy drunk every night because that's their way of coping with whatever they got going on, or whatever the case may be that they're lacking in whatever area, because they may have something going on. And I mentioned this before. I seen a video of multiple men. It was like a compilation of multiple men calling their boys and just like saying like, yeah, I just called you to say good night, and they boys snapped on them or just straight up hung up. They either snapped on them because they felt like they was being on some you know what ish, or they just hung up. And is that like, am I being fake when I say what is the big deal about a man calling his friends or his brother or his cousin or whoever and just being like, good night, bro? There's some men that tell each other, they love them. And really, at least as far as certain men that I've seen do this, I don't take it as them being gay, you know what I mean? I take it in like when, because they'll say like love you, bro, when they leave, or love that, you know what? And a lot of that started around the time, if I'm not mistaken, when, even though it's always been a thing, but when men, black men, were really getting unalived by these police officers. So then it became a thing, especially for younger ones, to make it a point to tell their homeboy before they leave or before they get off the phone with them that they love them without it being a gay thing. It's just like, shoot, they have the yoke of and mentality that, shoot, depending. That might be the last time I talk to you, which is a sad state of affairs. So I don't know if you guys ever witnessed that before, or if you're a man, you ever experienced that before. But I've seen it. Hold on. Like, just like if you can have a man who is, like, he may have a gambling addiction, right? What drives a man with a gambling addiction? Like, how did you get there? You know what I mean? How did you get here? What prompted this? Why can't you stop? Why do you lack the ability to go in there with a certain amount and just rock out and then it is what it is? And then when you dive deep with certain ones who have gambling addictions, they also have debt that stemmed back before they even got the gambling addiction. And them getting into gambling, um, was kind of like a way, or was supposed to be like an easy fix to their money issues, their money woes, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'll go in here with this amount, I'm gonna win this amount, be able to take care of this. And then it's like, if you don't win, and then if you wind up losing more than what you thought, now you're trying to run it back. Whoop-de-doo, whoop-de-doo. I don't know if I necessarily agree with how lax they became with the gambling, how readily and available it has become for people. I might honestly say I wouldn't mind if they took it back into the day to where if you want to go and gamble outside of doing some scratch offs and playing the numbers, you're gonna have to get your ass up and out and go to the casino, as opposed to being able to just download an app and put your personal freaking credit card information into this app for this casino and whatever have you, and run it up that way. That is like a person with gambling. That's like a person, whether it be a man or a woman, who has a gambling addiction. That is like a gift on their lap. And they can put up all the disclaimers that they want to. But I can just imagine how many men or women who have gambling addictions. I can just imagine how worse it got once it became a thing to be able to just simply download the app and gamble from the app. But yeah, this was an important topic that I felt like I wanted to discuss and bring awareness to, especially when I bring awareness to, like I said, the type of certain types of wicked men and the behaviors they exhibit. It's like, yo, there's gotta be a reason. And I haven't ever talked about the fact that there's probably a reason as to how they became that way. You know, I just hyper focus on the what, you know, as opposed to the why and the how come. You know, I'll keep it a bean about that. So it says mental health involves emotional and psychological, well-being. Yet many men face unique barriers like social stigma, anger-based symptom expression, and high suicide rates. Only about 41.6% of men, and do your own research for anything I discuss, of men with a mental health illness receive treatment. So they don't go all the way. They don't take it all the way. They may go to the doctor, they may go to the therapist. Um, Not even a therapist, because you got to go to a doctor first in order to even get what is it called, dagnabbit? Referred to a therapist, if I'm not mistaken, or a psychologist, or any of those. You have to take the initial step of even going to the doctor and then go from there. But it says only 41.6% of men with a mental illness receive treatment. So they get their diagnoses, but then it stops there. Why? Why, if you took the step to go to the doctor to see what's good, the doctor tells you what they feel like maybe was good and refers you out to somebody who is special, who specializes in that field, and you don't take the next step. These are the things I think about. Why? Why don't you take the next step? Addressing these challenges requires, recognizing warning signs and utilizing available support systems. Common signs and symptoms: anger and irritability, anger and irritability, frequent frustration, aggression, or short temper instead of sadness. Because there's a difference between one being sad, feeling a little down, and someone just always being frustrated. They always aggressive. It don't take much to set them off, you know, anger and irritability. Next is escapist behavior. I never heard that before. Escapist behavior. Working long hours, always being the one to sign up for that overtime, always being the one to, volunteer to stay late or take on an extra task that would require you to stay late or to work a day off that you normally wouldn't work. And you don't even necessarily, quote unquote, even though there's no real such thing as too much money, right? But you don't have a necessary reason in that pay period as to why you really need to be taking on more than what you need to. But for a lot of people, their job is kind of like an escape, which makes sense. Escape is behavior. That's their job, even though work is work. It's kind of like an escape from their second job, which is really their first job, which is their family and all the responsibilities that they got to deal with when they leave that job. And it makes sense. I don't know if you guys ever seen movies to where whether it's the mom or the dad, the man or the woman, when they come home from work or for whatever their day consisted of, they will sit in that parking lot. And I wonder how many of you men will either, especially men that have a wife or a spouse that they live in a house with, men that have children, how many of you, when you come home from work, either take that scenic route when you know you could take that shortcut, or And I've seen videos of men just posting up in their driveway, kind of like trying to shake off the day and really just think about whatever they got to think about. And whether it be a skit or not, their woman just kind of like, girl, you see him out there. You see him out there. No, you don't need to go necessarily unless it's been a elongated period of time. Sometimes a simple phone call will do. But you don't need to off the rip the moment he pulls up in that driveway or in front of that house. If you was to touch the top of the hood, that thing is still hot. He just got there or hasn't even been there longer than 10, 15 minutes. It's okay to just take a step back and calm down, you know? Give him that little space. Give him that little space. You don't know what he got going on up top. And I seen it. And if anybody catches the replay and you feel like keeping it a bean, how many of you men who, like I said, are responsible for other people other than yourself, when you come home from your work, your job, hold on, tag, it. How often do you just ponder in your car, in your driveway? How long do you ponder in your driveway before you get out the car to go into the house? You know, to greet who you need to greet, whoop-de-doo, whoop-de-doo. I've seen that in real life and in movies, as well as on videos on here. And one dude straight up snapped on this lady, like he didn't put his hands on her or nothing crazy like that. But he snapped on her like, no, I don't need shit. What I need, you are not giving me right now, which is just some space. That's how you know if a person is fed up. That means you do this often, girl. Let that man chill. And that's a whole separate conversation. There's a lot of women, as well as men, who do this, but there's a lot of women who hover over their men. They don't give them no quote unquote breathing room. That can become overwhelming for a man, especially a man that actually, and you can know if your man actually give a damn about you and a family. So if you have a man who puts your family first, takes care of everything they're supposed to take care of, don't be hanging out all crazy, and they come to you and they say, hey, Paul and Saul, you know, want to go do this or go do that. They invited me. However, which way is worded to you. Please don't make a big hubbub about it. Please don't make a big hubbub about it. Please don't be calling that man every 20, 30 minutes. Like, sometimes that is needed. Most times that is needed. You know what I mean? Find yourself some business to keep you preoccupied, you know? But I wonder how many men either take the scenic route on their way home from work when there is a shortcut and they know there's a shortcut. Because it's like, yo, I just got done working. I just got done working. I need to clear my head because the job is never done when you are responsible for other people, you know? All right. Next is, oh, yes, no, we're still on escapist behavior. My bad. So working long hours, over exercising, that may be a way that they are kind of coping and dealing with whatever they're dealing with. You may hear that over exercising, like, oh, how is that a thing? It can be, especially if that is something that they are completely preoccupied with while allowing other things to fall by the wayside. You know what I mean? And then in some cases, depending, that may become unhealthy for them. Um, or excessive, excessive gaming to avoid emotions. Excessive gaming to avoid emotions. And hold on, because what I've learned is just, in my lived life experiences, um, there's no real age limit as far as how old a man, quote unquote, should be to be playing the Xbox or the PlayStation or PC games, because that's a hobby, you know what I mean? And I don't find that to be an issue. The only time it can be an issue is if they are completely preoccupied by that. And by being preoccupied by wanting to get on the game, they are letting other things fall by the wayside. Other than that, there's worse things. Ladies, there's worse things that a man or a child can be doing other than simply playing the Xbox, okay, or the PlayStation. There are worse things. There are more unhealthy things. There are more unsafe things that a man or a child can be doing with their free time, keyword free time, than playing the game. Now, obviously, if that man ain't got no job or should be, having aspirations to get himself a better job, if he is not doing his part in that house, whatever his part may be, if he is a lackluster father, a lackluster spouse, you know, and so on and so forth, then yes, him being on the game can be an issue. Like, come on, yo, put that game down, son. You got other things that you need to attend to. Same with if you have a son or a daughter who is a gamer. There's worse things a child can be doing. Now, yes, monitor it, especially if you allow them to have headphones and be talking to people, because those conversations can get wicked, you know? Hold on. But if your child is doing what they need to be doing at home, whether, it's with their behavior, their chores, keeping their room clean, whoop-de-doo, and they're doing what they need to be doing in school, and if they are a teenager, you know, not only are they doing what they need to be doing in school, they either have a little job or they are in a sport or, a club of the sorts. And if they want to use their free time from the more productive things that they do to get on the game, why not? You know what I mean? It's when you are hyper focused on it while letting other things fall by the wayside. You're escaping from the things that matter and you are using that game as a crutch or as a way to escape that. And like I said, if you're taking care of your business, you're taking care of your business. And if that's your hobby and you want to use it as a quote unquote escape, a period in time where you don't want to think about none of that stuff, because even when you do take care of your business, it still weighs heavy on you because you got to take care of your business. Duh. So yes, um, physical pain, unexplained headaches, digestive issues, or chronic fatigue. Something is wrong. Withdrawal, pulling away from friends, family, and hobbies, just becoming a recluse of the sorts. And that's not normally your MO, which is why they have a thing called well visits. And even though that's a noxious thing to, for especially those who will call the police, and say they want to do a well visit on somebody because they're not answering their phone, they're not answering the door, whoop-de-doo. That can be a very obnoxious thing that have happened to you, you know. But as long as you know there's no malice behind it, it's just somebody that cares for you, you know what I mean? But it can definitely be obnoxious and very inconveniencing, right? Depending on what you got going on. Um, and lastly, we're just going over some of the common signs and symptoms of somebody of a man, you know, who may have something going on up top, whether it's something little or big, because the little things can form to big things. Um, oh, yes, yes, yes. The last one is substance use. Increased drinking or drug use to cope with stress. That is a real life thing. People use drinking and doing drugs as an outlet, you know what I mean? And the problem is when you do that, one of the problems with that is when that is the thought process and the motive. And I touched on this before, like a lot of times your 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 why as to why you're even going into this liquor store, what you got going on with yourself to make you even want to go into this liquor store, will determine how messed up you allow yourself to get. Like, are you going in here just because you know you want to make a little drinky drink, have a little drinky drink just to relax, take a load off, you know what I mean? Because you're having a party, you're having a gathering, you're having a function, a whoop-de-doo. Or it's just everything seeming like it's fucked right now. So you're like, fuck it. Excuse my language. I'm about to go and get this and that. And your full intention is just to get shit faced. Not tipsy, not a little buzz, not a little relaxed, but completely shit faced. If that is ever your intention when you're going into a liquor store, there's something wrong, in my opinion. And it's easy to say that should nobody be doing any drugs other than smoking weed or doing edibles, which I believe that and encourage that. Like, don't do no hard drugs. If you must, just go get you some bud, get you an edible or two or something. But then you have people who are also of the ilk of you shouldn't be doing none of that shit, especially as a form or as a way to kind of self-medicate and cope with your shit instead of gathering your shit and just finding out the best ways to deal with that. It was an episode of Rick and Morty. I don't know if y'all ever watched Rick and Morty before, but the brother was having a conversation with his sister because they were like in the middle of some type of scheme involving the grandpa. Grandpa is always the common denominator in the bull crap. But anyway, and they were in a heated discussion because the sister was just over their scheme. She was ready to blow the top off of everything. And I say all that to say it was funny because he was just telling her like, "This is your shit. You need to get it, put it in a nice bowl, and just get your shit. Get your shit." He kept saying that. And I'm like, yeah, it's your mental health. It's your mental health. And if this is a man who you have in your life in any capacity and you care for them and you feel like something might be off, say something to them. Just don't do it in a degrading or attacking way. Because most times if not all times, when people feel attacked, they shut down, especially if they have something going on up top, in my opinion. All right, next it says barriers. Shelly said 100. Next it says barriers to seeking help. Cultural stigma. We touched on that. You know, messages telling boys and men to tough it out or to hide your emotions. You know what I mean? And when I say barriers to seeking help, meaning like things that can halt that, can stop that, prevent that. These are things that prevent men and boys and young men from going and seeking help or opening their mouth and saying, I am feeling this. I have this going on with me. Telling messages telling boys and men to tough it out or hide emotions. Hold on. And there's multiple different messages, you know what I mean? And one that comes to mind, even though I know that it has a deeper meaning, is when you tell somebody to put their feelings in their pockets. You know what I mean? I used to know somebody who would always circle back to saying that when they are discussing certain things. And I understand what they mean when they say that, but at the same time, sometimes you don't need to put your feelings in your pocket. Sometimes you need to let it be known and aware exactly where you're coming from, what you got going on, and how something is making you feel while still handling it in the proper way. So that stigma. We're going to go over barriers to seeking help, okay? I meant to seeking help, excuse me. Fear of judgment. We talked about how there's a very bad stigma on that for men, especially men of color, and especially men who were brought up by older men, strong men nonetheless, but older men that come from a different era of where that was not even a thing. You know, you had to handle your handle, and a lot of them drunk a lot, or often. A lot of them, not all, not most, so maybe not a lot, some, let's be fair. Some of them had drinking issues, even if they overcame them. Some of them had drug issues. And I'm discussing right now some of these older men from different eras that a man who is not from that era, but still a grown man with responsibilities nonetheless, seek counsel from, you know? And and it's not because they're trying to be cold. They just know and remember what they had to deal with, what their plight was, what they had to overcome. And they don't really have too much sympathy for that. Some of them, like I said, also it came with them, therapy not being a thing. Back then, like I said, they had their drinking issues, they had their drug issues, they had their side families, you know, that was kind of like an outlet from their major from their main situation, because what comes with having a side family is that that side woman, whether she wants to accept it or not, understands that you're gonna get whatever I want to give you, whatever I have to give you. You know what I mean? Which a lot of times, side families, they stem from a man having a side chick that's kind of used as an outlet, an escape of the sorts from his everyday responsibilities and going ons and stress that comes with having a family, having a spouse, a wife, whoop-de-doo. Now, most times, even though there's some men who fall in love with a side piece, so the kids are planned, most kids that stem from a man stepping out on his wife or his woman and his children, most kids that come from that are not planned. You know what I mean? And that leads to a whole other set of issues. But there is a reason as to why most times that man even felt the need to seek out a whole side situation. You know what I mean? Because I believe there's something wrong with men mentally. And not even saying it's a bad thing or a good thing, I just believe it to be a thing. If you lack the ability as a grown man to be able to understand and realize that you don't want to be with just one woman and then live your life as such. Those that have to do all that other extra stuff because you're lacking on something else. Something else is lacking. There's an issue there, you know? All right. Fear of judgment. These are barriers to seeking help. If you're a man who may have something going on, I don't even like to say something wrong up top. If you're a man who may have something going on up top because of just everyday life, things that occur, fear of judgment, worrying that opening up will make them look weak to peers or employers. And it's like if you're at that point where something maybe you may have something going on, who gives a fuck what your employers or your peers think about that? Fuck them. Excuse my language, but that's easier said than done for some, and I understand and acknowledge that. And then lastly, when it comes to barriers to seeking help, misdiagnosis. Difficulty identifying depression when it mimics everyday stress or physical exhaustion. And that's where keeping it a being and really just taking a step back to really think about stuff when you're not only talking, and thinking about this amongst yourself, but also when you're sitting down and talking to this professional because they're only going off of what you are telling them, what may be documented as far as behaviors and whatnot. Like they don't have that ability just to look you in the eyes and say, yeah, this, that, and the third, you know? And that's why it is important and very much needed for everybody to have people in your life who pay attention to you and how you move. And not that they tracking it and everything, but they're be able to tell and and pick up on when you're just moving different in a negative way, however which way you may be moving, and then go from there, you know. Yeah, you have been snapping a lot this past week or two, stuff that didn't used to set you off so easily. It don't take much nowadays, you know what I mean? Things that even if you don't have the ability in the moment to understand and recognize about yourself, if you have people who genuinely care about you, who pay attention, they will be able to recognize these things and highlight it and bring it to your attention. But I'm getting out of here. I appreciate everybody who came into the chat, those who were dwelling in the clouds, those who may catch the replay. And about to go over to my sis F&M's channel because she is live and she is doing a full complete breakdown. I'm going to share her live out to my wall. Okay. Thank y'all for coming and I hope y'all have a great night. Bye.